The movie begins with a very strong storm, and after it ends, we see a box located on an island with an advanced robot inside it, and a family of beavers arrives and tries to detect the robot and one. One of them starts up, and the robot speaks all languages and says that her name is Rose 7134 and that she is made by Universal. She understands the beaver family that she is a person's assistant and tells them to ask her for anything. Of course, the beavers do not understand her anymore. Suddenly, the wave hits Rose, and she moves away from them. She is also shocked when she finds a large wave coming towards her, and she tries to climb the mountain, but she can't. But she sees a crab and rolls over and does something like him and has fun. A mountain comes to the quilt, and a girl is dazzled by the beauty of the forest. She begins to explore it, and she searches for anyone to be his assistant. As is clear, the animals remain afraid of her and see a threat to them. Rose prefers to ask every animal she meets if it is him. I need her help, but of course they don't understand her, nor does she understand her. She also imitates their movements and learns from them. She runs like a gazelle, and a dazzling girl when she touches a rock and butterflies fly around her. Suddenly, the animals attack each other like any predator or prey, and Rose falls until a bird comes, and everyone is beeping to move away from him, except for Rose, who takes the projectile. Rose activates the learning cycle and prefers to sit where she is, surrounded by the behavior of the animals, their actions, and the way they speak. After a while, she moves again after she was able to understand the language of the animals, and she hears them calling her a monster. However, she is grateful that they taught her their language, and she gets to know herself and asks if any of them need help. On the ground, Rose rises again, and everyone is terrified of her and runs away. Then Rose rises to the top of a mountain and says that she must return to the factory. As soon as she turns on the transmitter, lightning strikes her, and after a while she excels and finds that all her parts have disintegrated because of raccoons that search for anything that shines, horses that control her dislocated hands and strike. One of them turns her eyes and tries to retrieve her SIM card, but it gets electrocuted, and as soon as she turns on the transmitter, the second raccoon pounces on her, and one of them takes and climbs the tree. A bride goes after him, her and all the raccoon, and they turn to the tree, and Rose is far away, and she runs after the raccoon who has the device until he enters a cave and gets tired, and the device comes out, and when she is taking the device, a bear comes out and hits her, so Ross runs quickly and tries to escape from it, but the bear remains fast and destroys anything in its path and criticizes it, but it reacts and, due to luck, loses its focus and slips and rolls down the slope, destroying everything in its path until it stops on the edge. When she regains her focus, she finds that there is a problem with the power generator, and she also reacts. She destroyed a nest of birds and killed me, one of them intact, and the bird inside her is still alive. Suddenly, she finds that the egg has disappeared from her hands, and she runs after the fox that stole it, and she is able to trap it with a saw in the trunk of the tree, but she does not destroy it and takes the egg. But he comes back and steals it again, so she starts running after him and running away. The fox feels sorry for the trunk of the tree. When the fox eats the egg, she takes it out of him and it flies far away, but he is able to catch it again. Despite his bad actions, all the thorns come out of him, and he lets himself walk. As soon as the egg comes out, you find that it is about to hatch, and you try to prevent it in every possible way. Despite that, the egg hatches and a baby goose emerges from it. Like any bird, the goose understands that Rose remains his mother and approaches her, but Rose puts him on the ground and says, he tells him that her mission is over, and she sticks a sticker for him, turns on the transmitter, and bounces to find a place where there is a signal. Of course, the goose walks after her on the basis that she is his mother, and every time she moves away from him, he returns to her again. And as soon as she turns on the transmitter, he looks at her head and is destroyed. Rose sees a mother opossum and her children who are riding on her back. He is taking advantage of the fact that she did not kill them. Beirut kisses her. The mother asks her if this little goose is still her son, Pharos. She tells her that this is not true, and that he is selling her movement, and it is impossible. She can't get rid of him, but she kisses them. The mother explains to her that this goose still sees her as his mother. Frost explains to her that her programming does not include being a mother, and she must return to the factory. And then the mother tells her that she must help the goose and eat it, and learn to swim and fly before the end of the fall, and it will die. From the cold, as soon as Rose bids with a word of help, she understands that there is a mission required of her, and so she returns to the factory and takes the goose and arranges the things that she will teach him. The mother takes her children and he prays for his strength. After that, Rose tries to eat the goose, but she no longer knows what she should eat, and the fox remains. He watches her, and Rose also teaches him how to swim, but she drowns, and one of the beavers comes out and throws water at her. When the fox finds her confused, he goes to her and introduces himself, and that his name is Fink, and he can help her. As soon as Fink understands that she will do anything he will ask her, he decides to take advantage of her. He tells her that they must eat it first, and makes her bring out a lot of oysters from the ground, but the goose does not eat it, and Fink is the one who eats it, and he also makes it imitate the bear and scatter the bees. He is the one who goes to steal the honey, and they also steal a fish from the bear, which runs after them and is confident that they escape from it. At the end of the day, Fennec is left with a lot of food, and Rose blames it, because the goose did not eat anything at all at that time. Fennec brings worms out of the ground, and the goose eats the worms and is happy. Rose is happy because she has carried out her first task, and Fennec understands that her power generator has broken down and she has become dependent on solar energy, and they also know that she needs a new transmitter so she can return to the factory. Finn tells her that when they meet a broken robot, they will be able to. They take the transmitter from him, and he puts a live gecko in the boiling water, picks it up and eats, and explains to Rose that they are light creatures, including predators and prey. The goose does not know that it is the reason for the death of his family, otherwise he will hate it, and they keep watching the goose as he moves while the moss catches him and throws him from here to here. At that time, Fink explains to Rose that this goose is a dwarf and has a problem with growth, and even if his family had not died, he was going to die because the goose is weak, and he tells her that he might eat him if she lets him, and he also carves out that she should make him a house, otherwise he will die and will not be able to live. A horse will take him and a pent, while carrying the branches, and they will run on it. After that, Rose draws a plan for the house that she is going to build, and lays down its foundation. We notice that the goose begins to speak and Rose begins to lower a branch. On a branch, she builds the walls of the house, and the goose helps her and builds small branches with her. Of course, Fink does not do anything at all. After a while, they finish building the house, and we see that there is a storm at the door. As for Fink, he asks Rose what name she will name the goose for me. Rose tells him that she will name Chick number 1. I am surprised that Fink and Pensy go beyond their programming codes and think and choose a natural name. When they return home, Rose repeats that she calls the goose bread Bell, and he likes the name very much. The beaver peddler comes and he is upset because they stole the same design as his house. Jaw and Pete disagree with Bill's mind and he gets scared and screams. So Finn suggests to Rose that she tell him the story of a nest. To calm down and sleep, of course. Rose no longer knows any stories, and Fink takes on the task, and he begins to tell a story to Bray Bill, and tells him that there was a small bird who lived alone on an island, and all he needed was a peak to take care of him and take care of him. And suddenly a robot fell from the sky and met the goose and the robot. He bypassed all the programming codes so that he could take care of him. So Bright Bell's bed, once the story ends, and Rose remains surprised by what happened, and the power alarm goes off. And she tells them that she must turn off the operation until the morning, and leaves and disconnects it. So Finn goes to sleep next to her, he and Bray Bill. The days pass, and we see that Pride Bell has grown up and behaves like Rose, as if he were a robot, scares animals away from him. He comes to Fink and asks Rose to imitate animals, and Rose actually does that and imitates most of the animals. She also imitates gerbils, and produces the same bad smell. After that, they say that they should try the floating test today, and Bray Bill is practicing. On the chart, Fennec takes advantage of the opportunity and throws you off the cliff and falls into the lake. Fortunately, Bright Bill is able to swim, but like humans, in a slightly difficult way. Of course, Ross remains worried about him and dips her hands into the water, because if he needs her help, she keeps watching him and he follows Bill's mind until he reaches the herd of goose and one of them. She remains amazed when she learns that it is this Kawaz who was raised with the robot, and suddenly 3 of the Kawaz and Peter come to Bright and even tell him that his place is not with them, and they are trying to drown a horse that runs quickly and goes to him. And everyone, of course, is terrified of it and is afraid and flies. And one time, a wild fish attacks his brain and even tries. It is eaten by a horse that runs quickly to go to it, but its legs are stuck between 2 rocks and it is unable to move. However, it throws rocks at the fish and tries to distract it. When the fish is about to pounce on it, it takes out its hands and grabs it. And of course, Rose remains happy because she was able to save Bright Bell, and the group of geese returns and understands Bell's opinion. This fish attacked him because he was small, and it was impossible for him to be a normal goose of his size and shape, and I was on him because he understood that Rose was his mother, and they knew that Rose was the reason for the death of his entire family. This of course provokes Fennec, who pounces on them to eat them, but Rose prevents him and Pendubel from saying what he knew. He gets upset and leaves and walks away, and when they return home, we see that Rose's leg was destroyed because of what happened at the lake. And in Bill's opinion, he talks to her and asks her to tell him what happened to his family, and was she really the reason for their death? Rouse explains to him that this was an accident, and understands that if she had told him, of course, this would have affected Heather. He treats him negatively, so Azan Bright Bell says to her that the reason for this is that he will never be a normal lizard, nor will he ever learn to fly, nor will he remain one of the flock. He is very tired and tells her that she does not understand and does not have any feelings. He leaves and walks, so she loves Rose and goes to the beach. Fortunately, she finds her catalog and also finds what remains from second copies of the robots, but most of these parts remain broken and are not needed until you are able to operate the brain of one of them, and you see a universal advertisement, and you know that they are designed to help humans, not animals. And you put the pieces together, and you are able to operate one of the robots, and ask him to help her in her mission. and by clarifying the layout of all its codes. The software began to make decisions from its heart, even though it had no heart at all. The robot was surprised and asked it to examine it. When it did that, Rose looked very rigid. It told her that she had actually bypassed all of her programming codes and created new algorithms, and he understood that there was something wrong with her, and she had to go back. To the factory, he presents her with his transmitter, and it gets tired and disconnects. After a while, Funk goes to Rose, who remains on the top of the mountain, and tells her that he is looking for her everywhere. But Rose puts the transmitter in its place and says that she must return to the factory, and they will surely reprogram her, and she remains sad because she could not help Bright Bell. It remains clear to her that she misses him. So Fennec takes advantage of the opportunity and tells her that they are still in the fall, and Bright Bell must teach him how to fly. And if someone will die from the cold, Frost returns the transmitter and goes to Bright Bell and asks him to allow them to help him. Of course, Bright Bell refuses, but Rose insists that she helps him so that he does not expose himself to danger, and also so that he can be one of the flock. Bright Billy the bird lays eggs. He agrees, and Rose begins to explain to him the rules of flight using a diagram. They also learn to spread his wings. They begin to try. Rose puts him on her shoulder and runs with him, but she falls because of her broken legs. She goes to build a platform, and when she finishes, she reacts. Paddler made a leg out of wood for her, and he also rides it for her, but he is no longer able to fly. But he falls. Fennec gets an idea and goes to ask for help from another bird. And in the morning, the hawk comes, and Bright Bill understands that it does not mean that his wings are small. Then he will not be able to fly with his skill, and they meet the two of them. And the falcon prefers to teach Bray, but flying and Rose creates obstacles for them. And we find that Bright Bell is more advanced in flying and airbends, and he spends all day training with the falcon. And one of the geese comes and introduces himself to Rose, and that his name is Long. He is one of the immigration leaders, and understands that he was a supervisor for a long time, and remains proud of what she taught Bray Bell. Ruse thanks her and asks when she ran, and is Pride Bell fit to join them. Flong tells her that they ran after a week, and it is useful in Bray Bell's opinion to join them, but he must train. She can withstand flying for long periods of time, and she makes him fly all day, and only comes down to the ground at night. He explains to her how much he is. He is surprised that Pride Bill has reached this stage, even though he has a problem with growth. He asks her to learn to endure, and he will leave and fly. In fact, Rose begins to teach Bright Bill how to endure and let him fly. You drag Fennec into the river, and you also make him remove rocks on his wings. You teach him how to fly in the middle of strong winds, and you treat him hard day after day, and you make him remove a rock, and he prefers to fly with it until sunset, and he lands on the sidewalk with the utmost simplicity. After that, Rose and Fennec, along with Bright Bell, he welcomes them and tells Bright Bill that he would be happy if he joined his group. He explains to him that this trip is a gift from Rose. He makes him understand that there is no goose in the herd of the same size as him, and that he has a problem with growth. If his family had not died, and Rose was his caretaker, he would certainly have died in a sense. Secondly, the accident that killed his family is what saved his life. So Bright Bill is greatly affected by it, and Ross thanks Long for asking, and the whole herd flies after him, and before Bright Bill goes after them, Rose tells him that she is happy because he finally stayed with the herd, and they know that she will not be here when he comes back. Bright Bill goes and asks her to give him one last payment, and before he does, he thanks Fink for everything he did for him, and Rose takes him and runs among the geese until Bright Bell leaves her and flies with them. She completes her 3 missions, but she feels sad as she runs after them and sees Bright Bell, who is flying among Long's group that is returning. They attack her and say hello to her and go away. As we see, Rose remains sad even though she is a robot and has no feelings. After a while, Fink comes and asks about what they are going to do. Farouz tells him that now he can return to his normal life again, so Fink asks Fink and tells her that she does not have to go back to the factory. But Rose tells him that she is programmed for this. So Finn makes her understand that he will go back to living alone in his quarantine, and we see that the winter season has begun, and every one of the animals is preparing for the winter hibernation due to the storm that is approaching, including Fennec, who is entering his burrow, and also the bear who he locks himself in the cave, and the animals that join his family are left. They see Rose walking alone. As soon as she reaches the top of the mountain, she turns on the transmitter and the signal reaches the company headquarters. We go to the flock of geese that are still flying in the sky. In my opinion, Bill remains sad because he did not thank Rose. When they meet a storm, they decide that they are looking for something. They are unable to enter one of the human colonies, and this colony has fields of buttons. Suddenly, in Bill's mind, he sees a robot. And when he approaches him, he is happy because it is Rose. But this robot is no longer Rose, and there are many copies of him left in it. At that time, all the robots in the fields are trying to catch the bows, and the danger reaches the headquarters. When Long notices that Bright Bell is not afraid of robots, he asks him to lead the herd and find a way out for them. Unfortunately, the harvesting machines get out of control and swim, and then a robot specializing in combat appears, carrying the geese with a laser to kill them. Flong asks the geese to follow Bright Bell, and he hit the robot, and Bright actually did. Bill skillfully leads the herd, and makes them avoid laser attacks with a penalty and twists in the air. He also makes the robot cause an opening in the colony and change its direction in order to get out of this opening. Before they reach it, The robot looks at Poe's head and is about to kill him. But Long intervenes and attacks and pulls the robot, and we do not know it, who was hit by the missile. We go to Rose, who is saddened by Fennec's presence in their house and learns that she turned off the transmitter in order to confirm whether, in Bella's opinion, he will return or not. Fennec shouts and explains to her that he came back here because his stone is cold, and that this storm is the worst storm that has ever happened to them. Rose understands that. Other animals are in danger and are being taken. They go out into the forest in the middle of the snow, which remains very thick, and they search for the animals and begin to rescue them one by one, and they return to their home. They also rescue the opossum, the squirrel, and they return many animals to their home to keep warm. And in the cold, they go to rescue the paddler, and also the falcon and his family, the beavers, the raccoons, the squirrels, and everything else. We see that the house has become a reserve in which all the creatures in the forest are present, and they are tired of emerging because the energy is about to run out. However, you repeatedly go to save the last animal and go to remove the bear in order to return it to the house, and we see Fennec, who keeps trying to control the animals that attack each other, but to no avail, and suddenly, Rose enters with the bear, which is still sleeping, and Rose can no longer move and asks Fink to guide the animals. Finn shrieks and makes them be silent, and tells them that he knows that most of them hate them, and he also understands that everyone here is a predator and a prey, and this is a dangerous thing in itself. But if not, she fights with each other, all of them will die from the severity of the storm, and thanks to Rose, they are still alive, and he thinks what they were with her, and they call her a monster, and yet she did not abandon them, and she risked everything to save them, and Rose talks to them and tells them that she knows that each one of them has an instinct, but he must control himself. She approaches them while they are making a truce, and suddenly the bear speaks and says that her words are true, and he is not like her. As long as they are here, he sleeps, and at that time the animals approach him and sleep on him, and each group of animals sleeps next to each other. She disconnects the charge, and the days pass, and the winter ends, and Rose returns to charge again thanks to the sun, and she runs when she hears the sound of geese returning from migration, and as soon as she reaches the flock, she becomes anxious until she finds Pridebell back with them, and she is happy because he is still alive. And she also notices that everyone is proud of him, and they say that if only he were not their leader. Of course they were dead, and at that time she was happy because he had finally found his place, and she said that her mission had ended. Suddenly Fink came and called Bright Bill, and he was happy that he had returned to them. In Bray Bill, he was thankful and understood that Long sacrificed his life to save them, and as soon as Bright Bill knew that Rose was still here, he was happy and wanted to talk to her and come back. He goes home, but he does not find her, and we see Rose, who remains sad. Suddenly the transmitter turns on, and the company vehicle arrives to take her. From the vehicle, a robot named Funter gets out, and her mission is to return her to the second factory. She continues to check on Rose, and she is amazed, telling her that she is very important to Universal, and she understands that she was one of 6 robots that fell. She leaves the vehicle due to a strong hurricane, and asks her to ride with her in the vehicle, so that they can return to the company. Rose goes with her, and before she enters, she hears Fink calling her and telling her that Bright Bella wants to talk to her. It is necessary, so she gets out of the vehicle and goes with Fink, so she becomes angry with Ventra, and takes the battle robots out of the vehicle and lets him get expelled. Rose is putting out torches to light up the forest for them, and the bear comes and helps Rose, and runs with her, and adds to her every animal that sees them, and controls them together, and Bright Bill comes. But he does not continue to talk to her, and the robots are surrounded from everywhere, and they ask Rose to come with them, and of course she refuses, and tells them that this is her home, and that she is a wild robot. In compensation, he transfers to the robots, and he has a group of them, and he destroys one after the other, and when one of them comes to grab Rose, she attacks the 2 buttons with his scent, and the bear also helps her and destroys the second. But unfortunately, one of them grabs Rose, and then she pretends that she is dead, and Fink explodes, and the animals are very happy after they were able to destroy all the robots. But Ventra explodes one of these robots. After the second, the forest is burning, and she is astonished that she is taking the ship's berth and is waiting. But Pridebell takes the flock of geese and goes after her. As for the rest of the animals, they are shocked when they see that the entire forest is starting to burn, and we go to Font, where Rose understands that she needs all her memories, because she was able to develop a very powerful system, and that what she has learned. Money is worthless for Universal, and she understands that she won't think about anything else. She turns on the device and starts pulling memories from her, but the alarm goes off because of Bright Bell and the flock of geese that are attacking the vehicle, and Bright Bell flies high and descends quickly, breaking the buzzer and entering the vehicle, and even though his wing is broken, he looks for Rice and Bella to throw it away, but she is no longer working, so he becomes very attentive, and they hug each other, and he tells her that he will still consider her his mother, no matter what happens. At that time, Ross is working, and tells him that she loves him too. Watch Rose move in the vehicle, and no longer understand how her memories have not been erased, and we go to the Falcon that changes the direction of the cannon, and makes it hit the vehicle and cause it to malfunction. The head of the ship, Ventra, is able to hit Rose, and she feels sad and realizes that she must return with her, so that they can conduct tests on her. But Rose is deceived and her hands activate the magnet that pulls Ventre, and before he destroys it, Rose tells him that they will still come here to take her, and as soon as Ventre does so, Rose makes a hole in the vehicle and jumps out. She is holding the Brightbill, and the vehicle explodes. And because the Brightbill's wing is broken, Rose takes out the generator and throws it, and puts the Brightbill in its place, and locks it, and gets angry, and she uses the ball and gives the water in charity. It is a very strong shock, and we return to the animals that keep running and are afraid of the fire that burns everything in its path until when they get the suit and he realizes that they need his help. So instead, he asks them to apologize to him because they have been making fun of him over the past years, and he actually apologizes to him, and then they all unite with each other, and he falls into the river and changes the course of the water. And after when the fire ends, they all go to the rose that comes out of the water and comes out with his flag, and even all the animals rejoice because they are still living, but unfortunately their house remains destroyed, and Ross informs them that the robots will continue to come here to catch her and explain to Braybell that when the power was cut off from her and her memories were erased, she was able to hear him thanks to her heart, and she will continue to hate him and encourage all the animals and tell them that what is more important than that they saved them is that they remained united with each other. He is very sad about you, and he tells her that she is his only friend, and he never had friends before, and it is not good for her to leave him alone, and he cries because the antler is his friend. So she starts to gossip about Rose and brings all the animals, and they go back to building the house again, and Rose puts a picture of all of them on the house. After that, she turns on the transmitter, and the vehicle arrives. She takes it and walks with his opinion, and even Fink is very curious. And in the winter, we see that all the animals are living inside the big house that they say is theirs. And we go to the human colonies and see Rose, who is working among the robots and collecting fruit, and suddenly he shows her a banner, and she is holding it, and it is happy because she still remembers him and his embrace, and in the end, she does not forget. Support us with a like and subscribe to the channel to see the upcoming videos.